it sound right, boy.
The bulk truth. Royce, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Doing great, Steve. How are you?
Excellent. Looking forward to that. The topic today, we're bridging the gap, turning inventory anxiety into operational confidence. So tell us, why is this an important topic we need to cover today, Royce?
So, Steve, as we've traveled and met with different people in different locations, if you can imagine, operations typically has a set of numbers as far as what they believe inventory to be. They're measuring or going through a manual process to estimate what that is. But usually accounting shows up at the end of the day and has a spreadsheet or information that says, here's what the numbers really are. And so organizations are operating off of different sets of numbers, and CADARO is finding a way to measure accurately what's happening in these plants and ground the whole organization on a single number.
Yeah, imagine you're running an operation. You've got some good people in different positions, but they're responsible for coming up with a system to provide data. And each one has a little different system. And so what happens is they got to sit down and compare those. And it's never going to, well, more often than not, it's probably not going to align. And then what do you do?
Yeah, and that seems like that system is always after the fact, right? Whatever they're doing, they're trying to reconcile at the end, and so it's always reactive versus being able to know at any given point where they're at and being able to be proactive as far as making adjustments.
Imagine one guy showing up with a yellow notepad, another one showing up with he's got a scratch pad, from some conference he went to. That could be frustrating, trying to get everything aligned. And you got to bill people, you got to plan repairs, usage, whatever.
Yeah. When it comes to measuring inventory, it's not uncommon that people have a tape measure and they're going out and measuring bins or climbing up on bins to measure down to see where the product's at. And in some cases, they do this on a daily basis. So they're going out there and physically measuring and climbing, and that measurement always changes. Maybe nothing moved in the bin, but the measurement changed just based on who was measuring and who dropped the tape where and how the numbers came out. And so, that's pretty common. And in some cases, it's just walking by a bin with a hammer and just tapping to see, where's the level on the bin. But there's a lot of interesting ways how people are guesstimating today what inventories are.
Creative guesstimating. It doesn't take into consideration the barometric or atmospheric changes, et cetera. That impacts the size, the way it flows, so many things.
Yeah, well, it's not uncommon with these bulk materials. They'll bridge over and create gaps, in space, and so it's just a lot of variations.
So today you brought this infographic here, where what you're really addressing, Royce, is you're bringing confidence and accurate data into an organization. They just want to run the business and be good stewards over their responsibilities, and that's what you're solving.
Sure. Yeah. It's based on a single number, right? Everybody has a number, right, for the organization that they're performing by. And so by removing the different ways that different groups are estimating and getting to a single number and having confidence that it's accurate, right, just brings people together. And now they're starting to work on, what they can do about the number, right, as far as improving the results and improving the performance, improving the yields. And so it seems like it's really projecting or propelling the company forwards.
When we're looking at this infographic that you brought to show today, so I think we've covered that most facilities rely on estimated data, and that's across many segments of the organization, right?
Sure. It starts with operations, but finance, accounting, C-suite management. It's each person's looking for something slightly different, right? Even though it's the same number, same set of numbers, what they're using the numbers for varies.
Yeah, and then the time that they're requiring that number, they may have to wait a week. They may have to wait till the end of the day, wait till the end of the month before they can I guess, audit it and make sure that it was accurate, what they guesstimated.
Sure. And they're reacting at that point, right? You mentioned the time lag, but obviously that's really what the basis of this is, beyond just the accuracy and the confidence of the number. But at that point, they're reacting, they're making adjustments after the fact, and which can be painful.
So you've got down here at the under the bridge that the CADARO. I like the CADARO Edge. That's the name of the confidence that you're bringing into an organization, right?
Sure. Yeah, and I mean, that measurement is, not only bringing confidence, but it's operational intelligence. And so, these measurements now are allowing, enabling the plants to have operational intelligence. So as you think about machine learning, AI, automation, and so, thinking about being proactive, now you have a number that you could take an action on, and start looking for ways to become more efficient as far as how we integrate those numbers, and how we manage from those numbers.
You mentioned AI, and whether organizations at this moment would agree with this. The fact is, every single one of them will be adopting AI to some extent in the future, and all that CADARO is doing is offering them a way to be relevant the moment that they begin to have expectations of this data and have expectations of AI to help them think and prepare and plan better.
Sure. And I mean, most organizations are accustomed to having a lot of data, right? But in this case, this is a blind spot for most people. The lack of visibility, the fact that they're estimating, number one, AI is not going to be really effective using estimates after the fact. And so by actually measuring up front and being able to accurately measure, then you're going to start building this database, right? That shows from an operations standpoint, how are we performing versus last week, last year, this batch. I mean, all of that data then is going to be, overlooking that data is going to be AI or some type of system that will help you learn faster and improve.
We're familiar with the term garbage in, garbage out, right?
Definitely.
And so this blind spot you're mentioning, CADARO comes in and is able to turn that guesstimate, which would be garbage in, right? It's the best we got, but you're positioning them with gold in, and then they can expect gold out.
Definitely. Yeah. I would expect tighter operations, take out the variations, take out the variance, bring the outer bookends in to where you're operating very close to that average versus the broader range that most plants are operating today.
And so you talk about the organizational systems. I lost my space here in the notes, but we're dumping this information into an existing system.
Correct. Yeah. So many times from the CADARO system, so we have our own control panel, but that's being integrated into a company's internal PLC or internal system. So the numbers are being fed in instantly, and then from there, then they're able to utilize that in their normal operating environment.
And so you have these sensors. You could have these sensors throughout the plant, and a central place that is collecting and displaying this data, right, in a control room or even remotely in other locations.
Sure. And that goes back to the operational intelligence. I mean, if you have a processing facility, you're moving material into the plant, so that's usually a point of reference as far as how much materials came into the plant. If you're going through sorters or scalpers, something to clean the material, then knowing how much actually entered into the process. So from there, you can calculate yields very accurately. So if you're milling it, possibly going through a hammer mill, creating corn flour, wheat flour, whatever that might be, then as it goes downstream in the process, I mean, maybe there's byproducts such as hulls. In oats, there's oat hulls, oat groats. And so there's different products that are coming off of that stream that you can measure. And so you can see that as you make adjustments in the equipment, what was the instant impact of those adjustments, right? As you try to dial the facility in. And again, I'm thinking at it from a manual operations process, And then at some point in the future, people take their hands off the wheel and stop making those manual adjustments, and you just let the system start adjusting itself within reason.
So what are the common, while you were discussing it, it came to my mind, in how many places in a plant could you have a CADARO system collecting data?
That's a great question. It somewhat depends on the process or the plant, but it's fairly common that 5 or 6 would be a minimum, right? And upwards of 20 plus, depending on how many, because at certain steps you might have multiple hammer mills or you might have multiple streams of product, and so a single stream may get diverted into 4 or 5, and so that just creates more opportunities or needs for visibility.
So like a rail car pulls up, materials move from that rail car into the plant. And I haven't really thought about this until just kind of picturing that in my head. You're guesstimating at various transitions throughout the plant before it goes out the other side in a package or some other expectation.
Sure. And normally, I mean, the material that's going to be brought into a facility and is going to be in some type of bulk storage. So it's that initial transfer out of bulk storage, because if it's just the rail car, normally they're going to have a measurement on that rail car, right? So they'd have a basis for a measurement there. But normally they're going to have bulk storage that they have multiple cars or multiple trucks in. And so, now they're just interested as far as, what did we bring into the plant today? Right? Or what are we bringing in at any given moment? What does that stream look like relative to where we want to be operating or where we are historically?
I think of, recently all the discussion around what's going on in Iran and the Strait of Hormuz, and it's a choke point. And what CADARO is addressing is like a similar choke point of unclear data.
Sure. Yeah, because it could be choke. It could be, you could be overfeeding and plugging. And so, yeah, having that visibility to how much is getting through the channel, right? How much is getting through the pipe or the chute is very important to know, where are we operating or when we might potentially be about to see a problem, right? In the process.
So we have various versions of the CADARO choke point relievers, right? Let's walk us through each of those scenarios or each of those versions that you have, please.
So you're thinking, so as far as what sensors and designs?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So if it's in a vertical application and say it's a round pipe, so our veracity, our traditional veracity series goes up to 5,000 pounds a minute, fits into upwards of a 10-inch pipe. So from 4 to 10 is generally the range that we cover there. Fitting it into a space of roughly 24 to 26 inches on the max with upper and lower transitions. And so on an incline chute, we have our integral series. So integral is our branded name for incline. And so we can go from very small volumes all the way up to 50,000 pounds a minute in that series. And then the most recent launch back in February is our Veracity Diamond series. And so they're going to flange or fit into an existing vertical chute, if you will. And so anywhere from a 4-inch inlet all the way up to 18-inch inlet, measuring all the way, from 20 pounds a minute all the way up to 20,000 pounds a minute. And so, and those are very low profile. So those typically at 20,000 pounds on grains, we can fit that into about a 12-inch clearance space. And so, and applications or products in the marketplace that are doing, being used to measure, right? They may take up a whole floor. And so they're very large, very expensive. And so where people are needing visibility, it's just opening doors and opportunities that didn't previously exist.
So the design thinking behind that was how to take advantage of this data and not needing to retrofit your whole plant.
Yeah. And the plants, I mean, as we've gone into plants, I mean, you only have so much space. And so as we walk into a plant and they're saying, I've got these 4-inch pipes, I've got 6 of these and I'm going in here once a day and I do a measurement and I run my plant for 24 hours based on that measurement. Ideally, what they'd like to have is technology or instrumentation in the plant where it shows precisely what's going on at any given moment, and it's repeatable, right? They don't have to take that manual process or manual step and then they get that visibility in all those critical areas.
And then you have various ways to engage with you. Let's talk about those plans.
Yeah. So as far as ways to engage, going to our website, CADARO.com is a good way. I mean, not only do you find information, but there's a link in there that you can schedule a site review. And so it links to our calendar, so you can pick a time that's convenient for you, and book a 30-minute session to learn more about your operations and how CADARO might be able to help. So the email info@CADARO is always a good place if you want to send an email to us and inquire more about what our services are and how we might be able to help you. And then we have if you just have questions, you want to know more about CADARO, the YouTube channel, We Are CADARO, is a good place for information. So if you want to see live examples of sensors being used, if you want to see some of the previous Bulk Truth sessions, they're all out there.
Yes, and we have this sexy QR code in the top right too. You can use your camera on your phone. That'll take you directly to the places to engage with Royce as well. Royce, we got July 4th coming up. What are you going to do?
Head into the mountains. Hopefully nice, cool weather.
Yeah.
Hopefully no fires.
Starting to get hot. Yep, it'd be nice to go hang out in the mountains without smelling smoke, unless it's from a nice little fire you started, right?
Yeah.
All right, everyone stay tuned. We'll have another episode of The Bulk Truth where we learn about how to bring intelligence and get data so you can make decisions better. And what's the phrase?
We measure, you manage.
All right. And that's a wrap. Good job.